Hi writers, welcome to Personal Narrative with Miss Nasripur. This week in writing, we will be beginning personal narrative. You will be beginning to do some pre-writing as you brainstorm things you'd like to write about, and you will begin the writing process of drafting your own personal narrative. You'll be watching videos with me this week where I can give you some great examples of what personal narratives can look like. And today we're going to start that journey with Grandma's Records, a beautiful book written by Eric Velasquez. In this book, Eric tells about a memory he has of spending summers with his grandmother in her home in New York. In this book, Eric and Grandma bond over their shared love of music, and she gets to tell him all about growing up in her hometown in Puerto Rico through the music they listen to together. Remember that last week we started talking about our identity? Part of Eric and Grandma's identity is that they are Puerto Rican. It is one part of their identity. Another part of their identity, or at least for Grandma, is that she is a native Spanish speaker. Therefore, many of the words in this book are going to be in Spanish. Part of my identity is that I am a native English speaker and that I learned and am continuing to learn Farsi, my family's language. There may be times that I say a word in Spanish that I'm unpracticed at saying. Please forgive me, and if you can help me by correcting me, that would be great. We're going to start reading the dedication. And remember, a dedication is when an author says, this beautiful book, it was inspired by and is written for this person, fill in the blank that I love. So let's read Eric Velasquez's dedication. For my grandmother, Carmen Maldonado, 1909 to 1983. This song is for you. Third graders, what does it tell you that Mr. Velasquez dedicated this book to his grandma? Think it? Tell me like I was sitting next to you. What does it mean? I think it means that he loved her very much and that she inspired this book for him. Let's get started reading. Every year, right after the last day of school, I'd pack a suitcase with my cool summer clothes, my favorite toys, and a sketchbook. Then my dog Daisy and I were off to Grandma's apartment in El Barrio. Because my parents worked, Grandma's apartment was my summer home. So third graders, why would Eric need a home in the summer? Because his parents worked. Make an inference. What is happening in this part of the book? Eric's on summer vacation. His parents can't stay home with him, so he gets to go stay with Grandma. From the time my parents dropped me off until the day they picked me up, Grandma wrapped me in her world of music. Sometimes when she played a record, we would dance together. Other times, she would dance alone and tell me her stories about growing up in Puerto Rico. When Grandma played a merengue from the Dominican Republic, her hips would sway from side to side. As her favorite salsa record played, she'd say, "Just listen to that conga," while she played an imaginary drum. Grandma liked all types of music, but one record was very special to her. Whenever she played it, she would put her hand over her heart and close her eyes as she sang. When it was over, Grandma would sometimes sit quietly, thinking about Grandpa and the old days in Saint-Tropez, her hometown. Sometimes Grandma said a song can say everything that is in your heart, as if it was written just for you. Third graders, I think that talks to the point that so many of us have shared experiences, and a song that one person writes or a poem can really reach inside us because we've had that same experience. My favorite days were the ones my grandma would tell me, "You pick the records today." No matter what I chose, Grandma would always say, "Siempre mi gusto tu selección." I always like your selection. Sometimes I would sneak in Grandma's special song just to watch her put her hand over her heart and sing. Then she'd always ask, "Como tu sabes?" How did you know? Third graders, I wonder if anyone in your family has a special song that really takes them back and helps them remember an important time or place in their life. I can still remember my dad singing it every Saturday growing up, his special song, as he cooked for me. Makes me hungry just thinking about it. It was too hot to go outside. I'd spend hours looking through all of Grandma's album covers. I'd pick out my favorites and make sketches of the art. As I drew, I could see the record covers coming to life and the bands performing right there in Grandma's living room. Grandma never went to any nightclubs to see her favorite bands perform. She was happy just to stay home with me and listen to her scratchy records. But Saint-Tropez was home to hundreds of musicians, and she knew a lot of the people who played on the records. Grandma's nephew Sammy played percussion in Raphael Condule's band, and their band was in town. Sammy brought over Cordito and the band's lead singer, Ismael Rivera, for a surprise visit. Home-cooked meals were hard to come by on the road, and they couldn't pass up the chance to taste Grandma's famous arroz con condules, rice and pigeon peas. So third graders, I can make an inference. The author isn't telling me what they mean by on the road, but I know that musicians travel when they are playing their music to give concerts. So what this part of the text is telling me is that this band is traveling to play their music and that they want some home-cooked food because they haven't been home in so long. While eating dessert, Sammy had another surprise for Grandma. 2 tickets to the band's first New York concert, and their brand new record, which wasn't even in stores yet. I raced over to the record player, thrilled to be the first New Yorker to hear their latest music. The next day, Grandma and I spent all day shopping for clothes to wear to the show. She even made me get a haircut. The theater was all the way up in the Bronx. The Bronx is a neighborhood in New York. We took the subway there. Remember, we talked about in Cherries and Cherry Pits, we talked about the subway being like the train that we take, but it's instead of the light rail being on top, it is beneath the ground. We took the subway there, and Grandma was nervous during the whole ride. When we got to the theater, we walked past the long line of people and went right inside because of our special tickets. The theater was bigger than all the movie theaters I had ever gone to. The band made a spectacular entrance. Suddenly, the theater went dark. Tiny lights glittered, and a loud siren filled the air. I heard Grandma gasp. Ay, Dios mío, oh my God. She thought something was wrong. The darkened stage seemed to fill with people running back and forth in confusion. Next, everything went dark again, and a loud and steady conga beat began. Boom, bak, boom, bak, boom, bak. Then the lights came on with a loud boom, and the band began to play the song El Bombón de Yelena, Yelena's Candy. How exciting, third graders. Grandma and I were surprised at how different the music sounded live. The musicians made familiar songs sound fresh by adding new musical phrases and words. Before the last song began, Ishmael said, "This one goes out to Carmen." That's Grandma. And he pointed to Grandma as he sang her special song. I looked at her as she put her hand over her heart, raised the other hand, closed her eyes, and began to sing along. Ishmael was singing to my grandma. Then I looked around and realized that everyone in the theater had their hands over their hearts too. So it's not just grandma. It seems like this special song is special to a great many people in the audience. After the show, I went backstage. I asked Ishmael how he knew about Grandma's song. He explained that the song was about coming to a new country and having to leave those you love behind. People put their hands over their hearts to show that their hearts remain in Puerto Rico, even though they may be far away. Now I understood why Grandma's song was special to so many people. Third graders, I'm going to teach you a word that describes what he's talking about when a person moves from one country to another. We call that to immigrate. I say it, you say it. Immigrate. Like my father, I know that many of you or your parents have immigrated from one country to the United States. It's what makes South Shore so awesome, I think. Over the next days and weeks, Grandma and I put on our own shows, imitating Cordito's band. Grandma wished such a special night had been captured in a recording so that she could listen to it again and again. But even then I knew that a concert is so special because it leaves you with the memory of a magical moment in time. As I got older, I started bringing over my own records to play for Grandma. Brazilian music, jazz, and even rap. She loved listening to it all. What a special thing that Eric and his grandmother get to share. Even now, when I'm playing CDs in my studio, I imagine I'm back in Grandma's living room and she turns to me and says, "You be the DJ today. Siempre me gusta tu selección." And as I work, Grandma's special song surrounds me. What a beautiful book, third graders, and what a great example of a personal narrative. It's definitely a story that's personal to Eric and his grandmother. And it's a narrative because he told it in a story. He told it like a story. So as you're working today, think about all of those special memories that you have in your life that you might be able to write about. I can't wait to read them. Neither can your teachers, Miss Bedford and Mr. Moreno. Thanks so much for listening to this great book with me. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed reading it. Thank you, third graders. Take care. Talk soon.